Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a little aside from actual programming and development concepts and talk about styling in Ruby and in Ruby on Rails as well. So the same styling conventions apply to both Ruby and Rails when you work with it later on. So the first thing I want to talk about is snake case. And this is snake case. Basically words separated by underscores and everything is lowercase. And in Ruby and in Ruby on Rails, you want to use snake case for things like method names and variable assignments. This allows for pretty descriptive method names and also for variable assignments, and it's pretty easy to read. So that's the convention to use for those. Then you see you have an example here of a method name, define my name is, etc., etc. And then it comes to space, so indentation. Indentation in Ruby, you see if I scroll back to, you see it's two spaces. Global convention in Ruby and in Ruby on Rails is tabs, or one indent is two spaces, okay? So if I go to the next line, and if I hit tab, you'll see by default it goes to two spaces. And you want to do that. A lot of programming languages have tab as four spaces, which is fine for those programming languages, but if you use four spaces for Ruby and in Ruby on Rails, let's say a potential employer is looking at your code, they will know right away that you're not really a Ruby or Rails developer with much experience. And if you write code with indentation at four spaces, and let's say you put it on your GitHub repo and someone else looks at your code, they will definitely have a little bit of a conniption. So very important to note, when you're writing Ruby code, two spaces, okay, for tabs. Next, we go to class names. We haven't really worked much with class names because even though we've been throwing around words like object and object-oriented, we haven't really explained what that is exactly. So to think of it, every object at some level is a class. Okay, and we will do this very soon when we get to object-oriented programming. But in general, class names are camel case, where both the first letter of every word in that name is capitalized. There are no underscores or anything, so they resemble the humps of a camel. So if you look at this, let's say we have a class named application controller. Then it would be something like this, application controller. The same thing in snake case would have been application underscore controller, okay? But when it comes to class definitions, the first letter, it has to be capitalized. So if you're saying class, some class, it has to be class and then some class. Now the file name associated with this would be different again, but again, we're gonna cover that when we get to Rails. For now, just know that class names, camel case, and method names, snake case, and variable assignments, snake case. Now, a lot of you who are already familiar with camel case may be thinking, wait a second, that's not true. This is camel case, where the first letter actually is lowercase and then each other word in it. So camel case, another case. Those would be capitalized. And this is true for camel case, okay? True camel case is this. So in JavaScript, for example, method names or variable names are this way, and that's okay. But in Ruby, because the class definitions start with a capital letter, you want the first letter to be capitalized as well, all right? So this is how this would look in Ruby and in Rails. Another thing is when someone says, oh, but this is not real camel case, well, it's a branch of it, all right? If you Wikipedia this, you will see that there are lots of conventions around what camel case is, and this is also camel case, a version of it. Okay, so this is obviously not everything associated with styling in Ruby. If I pull up a new window and go to Ruby Style Guide, you'll see lots of resources associated with Ruby styling. Let's click on the first one, Rubocop HQ, Ruby Style Guide. And if we scroll down, you'll see there's a very good reference point as to styling in Ruby. You have table of contents, you have source code, syntax, naming, comments. It basically walks through everything associated with styling. Okay, so let me click on syntax. It tells you what's bad, what's good, and then it gives you examples. This is a very, very good resource for anytime you're confused with, oh, how do I style this? Well, you can take a look at it here. So I would encourage you to read through this. It will be good practice for you at this time, now that you have been doing some Ruby programming, to kind of look through, see how code is in Ruby, and work through some of these examples, right? So just in your REPL, go ahead, type a few of them out, run it, just get used to it. And then if you scroll down all the way, keep going, as much as you can. Obviously, you don't need to memorize any of this. You're going to get used to it. But just take a look at it. It'll familiarize you with this entire world that exists of Ruby styling. At this point, I would say don't go past classes and object definition, because we haven't covered object-oriented programming. So if you look at that, it may be a little confusing. You can if you choose to, but I would recommend at this time, when you scroll down and you can look at naming, when you go down to object-oriented programming, just stop there, okay? But again, you don't have to memorize this. The important things to memorize are here: snake case, camel case, and the indentation being 2 spaces, tabs defaulting to 2 spaces. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.